It's time to transform your health with one of the nation's leading and growing authorities in total health. Over the next hour, learn from experts on how to revolutionize the health of those you love most. This is Ask Dr. Ernst. And now, here's your host, Dr. Aaron Ernst.
Well, hello. This is the Ask Dr. Ernst show where pounds are shed, disease is dead, and where you can be set free from all of your health problems when you activate your hidden health. I'm your host today, Dr. Aaron Ernst. And listen, today is a special day because this is our first ever sort of web broadcast of the Ask Dr. Ernst show. You know, we love the fact that it's turning to become a sports season, and we have football and various sports that are going to be coming up. And yes, this Saturday, the 20th, today, we are preempted. So what we've decided to do is still deliver the content to you each and every week in a format that you can still join us despite the fact that there are these awesome games going on. So here's how this is going to work. Anytime we have a preemption, I'm still going to come at you. Obviously, this is a pre-recorded show, but we still have great content and information. And exclusively, this show is only for our Ask Dr. Ernst listeners. So, of course, you guys got an email invitation to join me today, and I've got some great information for you. We're going to be discussing what your doctor doesn't often tell you about type 2 diabetes, and in fact, all diabetes. So if you're somebody who currently has diabetes, this is definitely a show topic for you. And listen, because it's a web content, if you know someone that has diabetes, make sure you forward the link on how you got access to this show. I think we're going to make a huge dent in the universe when it comes to diabetes today. Second, we're going to talk about a brand new sort of therapy, not necessarily new, it's been around for ages, but it's becoming more popular today, called Halotherapy. We're going to talk about what that is and why it's so good and why you may even want to investigate getting some halotherapy for yourself. To let the cat out of the bag early, it's simply a salt therapy. So it's a method of you inhaling very fine salt particles so that your body can utilize the salt activity for cleansing, detoxing, and for antioxidation. It's also very anti-inflammatory. And since we know a lot of conditions today are the result of inflammation, we want to help people break free. And you may have never heard of halotherapy before, thus the reason we're bringing it to you. And then lastly, as we answer some questions for this week, we had two really good ones, and I'm going to tap into these today. So one is, I'm a vegetarian, I can't lose weight. What's going on? I eat really healthy. So we're going to talk to all vegetarians who are struggling with weight loss. Even though you have what we would call a really healthy diet, you can still hit the same roadblocks that a lot of us do. And the second question is, how many calories should I be eating? I'm healthy, I'm this age, this weight, and we'll go through different areas. And I'd like to, again, lose weight. Notice, I think it's kind of funny. All of us want to lose weight, but we all come at it from different angles. And so I'm going to help people who are struggling or having difficulty losing weight to figure out how to do that. We're going to dispel this myth of counting things, you know, counting calories and counting how much time you're at the gym and counting. And we're going to go down a diet that actually helps you to lose weight regardless of your height, regardless of your age, regardless of what you're doing. And so I think you guys are going to love that. So what a great show today. And I love the fact that this is specific for our longtime listeners, those of you who subscribe to our blogs, our Facebook page, our websites, and we're keeping this content fresh. So again, don't forget, if you have a question for me, you have some sort of health issue that you want us to talk about each week, you can do that via our website, which is askdrernst.com. It's askdrernst.com. You can also ask any sort of confidential question that you have about your health. It could be something like, you know, my blood pressure's a little high. I don't want to go through medical therapy. How can I fix that? Or, you know, I was just given a recent diagnosis and I left with 5 prescriptions, whatever, 1, 3, you name it. And I don't want to go the medical route. You know, it's not uncommon for me to get a lot of emails. I was just diagnosed with this and I don't want to do that. What can I do instead? How can I go the healthy route? And that's what we're here for. Because again, if you remember, your body's designed to heal by itself. We were given an innate response, an inborn ability for us to heal. And just like gravity will always pull things down to the floor, your body will always heal. But just like if I interfere with gravity by either building a table or holding something, you know, in my hand, my keys won't naturally fall to the floor until I let go. So the interference is the fact I'm holding on to stuff. Your health is the same. You're supposed to heal. Your body's supposed to fix itself. But if there's something interfering, it won't let that process happen. And so what we want to do is help you find your interferences. And today's topic is mostly for those of you with diabetes, and then again to try to teach you something that you may never have heard about, this concept called halotherapy. And throughout this web broadcast today, I'm also going to give our listeners the chance to join me for my up-and-coming thyroid seminar. It's here in Charlotte on Saturday, August 27th. And so because there are no technical breaks, since this is a webcast, there's no commercials, we're going to go straight through the whole time. I'm going to sort of call out certain time slots for you to take an action. And listen, this is only if you want to break free from some serious health conditions that are relating to thyroid problems. And that would be things like brain fog, forgetfulness, fatigue, weight gain despite diet and exercise. So you may not have a thyroid condition, but you might be tired a lot, or you might be struggling to lose weight, or you might be like those people who ask this question, I'm a vegetarian and I can't lose weight. What's going on? Maybe it's your thyroid. Or how about this? How many calories am I supposed to eat? I need to lose 20 pounds. Maybe it's not counting calories. Maybe there's something going on with your thyroid. And in fact, most people don't realize it could be your thyroid. So I'm inviting you to join me. Now listen, it's been almost 2 weeks since I've been talking about this on WBT and on our various, webcasts and podcasts and radio shows and all of our content. So right now, the event is technically sold out. But in true Ask Dr. Ernst fashion, I have kept 10 tickets aside because I know it was going to sell out and I know we were going to go to a wait list. And so these 10 are the only 10 seats left. And how you get them is by doing this. While you're listening to me today, when I throw this number out, like I'm going to do right now, you have two options. You can call it directly or you can text it with your name and your email address. So the number is 704-906-2094. So again, 704-906-2094. And because this is a pre-recorded webcast, go ahead and rewind if you didn't get the number and just text it. I need your name and your email address and how many tickets you want. Now, again, remember, we only have 10, so these might disappear within the first, now. Boom, gone. So 704-906-2094. Call it or text it, and you can get tickets to the Thyroid Summit I'm doing Saturday, August 27th. It's here in Charlotte at the Holiday Inn Express and Suites, and it's at 11 a.m. on that Saturday. And so let's shift gears and start talking about diabetes. Here's the challenge behind diabetes, and a lot of what our doctors won't tell us about diabetes is the fact that specifically type 2 diabetes is not something that you are just born with. You're not born pre-programmed to at 50 or 60 become a type 2 diabetic. In fact, most people that are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes don't get it until later on in life, be it 30 or 40 or 50. And the sad reality today is we're starting to see diabetes show up in younger ages. So what used to be called adult onset type 2 diabetes can no longer be called adult onset because we're starting to see it in kids and teenagers that are having this sort of blood sugar balancing issue. Now, type 1 diabetes, by definition, is a genetic condition because you have it from the very moment you're born. So when we talk about things being a genetic tendency or running in your family, if you guys listened last week to our radio show, we talked about this concept known as epigenetics. It's the new prevailing theory that most disease is not genetic, meaning because you developed a condition not for the fact that you have the genes flowing around in your blood or your body, but because you activated them, you turned them on, you expressed them. So type 2 diabetes, we know, is a purely expressed condition. You create it. So if you've been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, there are some unique things about you that made your body become a type 2 diabetic. And in fact, we know for reality's sake that it's because of typically some sort of lifestyle-induced things or something that you've done or because there's a deficiency. So what I'm going to share with you today is how do you discover to break free from type 2 diabetes and what are the things we can do to sort of manage it naturally? Because I can guarantee you what your doctor's not telling you about type 2 diabetes is that it was a developed condition. You created it. And because, here's the good news, because you create it, you can uncreate it. But we got to make sure we step out of a couple things. Number one, when I say you created the disease, two things happen inside of a human's brain. One, if you're the type of person who says, wow, well, if I created it, I can get rid of it, then you're going to have great results, and your diabetes is going to clear out very fast. But if you're the type of person who, when I say you created it, you go, no, there's no way. Or, man, now I feel really bad, like I'm the cause of my own disease, and we start to go down this downward spiral of, depression and anxiety and worry and concern. Oh my gosh. And listen, it happens. I work with people all the time when I tell the truth to them, this is a condition that you caused. No, there's no way. It's from my family, or it's because I took a medication or whatever. But at the same token, if you even think about it, if it is from your family, you have control over the expression of your genes. We know this through epigenetics. So technically you caused it because you didn't figure out how to control it. And that may sound harsh, but in reality, it's the truth. Secondly, if it was a medication that induced your diabetes, well, you were the one that took the medication. You're the one who went down the path of trying to fix whatever condition you were taking the medication for in the first place. So do we cause our own sickness and illness? Yes. So let's all be adults and wake up to the reality that we're in control of our health. So if you have type 2 diabetes, it may sound strange, but in as little as 14 days, it's actually been proven you can bring yourself out of having high blood sugars. But I want to talk for a moment as we go through how do we fix diabetes, especially type 2 diabetes naturally. We have to talk about what it is, because you think diabetes is high blood sugar. And that's because that's what our medical professions will teach us. So for example, if I fast and I don't eat and I get my sugars tested, which you can do either with a finger stick, that if you own a blood sugar monitor at home, or you can go get it tested officially at a lab. But if you fast for about 8 to 10 hours and you check your blood sugar in the morning or whenever at that 8 or 10 hour mark and your sugar is above 100, you're going to be labeled as pre-diabetic. But here's the challenge. Having high blood sugar is not the cause of diabetes. And I'm going to let that sit in for a second. High blood sugar is not the cause of diabetes. It is the symptom of having diabetes, which is just a name for high blood sugar. So to say that you're diabetic and to say that the high blood sugar is causing diabetes is a misnomer. That's not the cause of diabetes. It would be the equivalent of saying the cause of my house burning down is because my fire alarm went off. No, your fire alarm is going off because your house is burning down. You guys understand? What's causing the house to burn down? Well, the fire still isn't causing the house to burn down. The fire's there because the house is burning down. But what caused the fire in the first place? It could have been a spark. It could have been a candle. It could have been the stove. It could have been negligence. You guys understand? Your house burning down is diabetes. The fire alarm going off is the high blood sugars. The cause is what you have yet to discover. And if you can find the cause and fix it, the unique thing about your body, as opposed to a house burning down, is your body has pre-designed mechanisms to repair itself. It can rebuild. So if you wake up after fasting or you do this test after fasting and your sugars are higher than 100, you're a pre-diabetic. If it's higher than 125, you're a raging diabetic. And we need to get this under control. Normal blood sugar after fasting should be 70 to 80, preferably even lower, because it tells us that your body's burning sugars appropriately. Now, here's the sad fact. As of 2012, 30 million Americans have diagnosed diabetes. That means 10% of our population's walking around with sugars over 125 when they fast. And the sad reality to it is you can't feel it, so most of you don't even know if it's happening. And you'll often say stuff like, well, my blood sugar's low, I need to eat. And you eat, and then your blood sugar spikes even higher. So blood sugar's low, you can't feel this stuff. So if we have all these people that are diabetic, how come it's not getting fixed? And it's because the approach is incorrect. We should not be approaching diabetes as it's high blood sugar, let's take drugs to lower your blood sugar, because just because your sugars go back to normal doesn't mean the cause is gone away. In fact, we all know this, right? If I take a sugar-lowering drug, sure, my sugars are going to lower, but as soon as I stop taking it, what happens? My sugars go up. Why? The cause was not the lack of medications. So what we want to do is find out what is it that actually is some of the causes behind diabetes. And in fact, this may shock you. One of the causes of diabetes is a nutrient deficiency of two specific essential minerals that you can't live without. One is called chromium, and the other is called vanadium. And so if you are deficient in chromium and or vanadium, you're going to have high blood sugars, and you'll be labeled as being a diabetic, when in fact it should be you're a chromium vanadium deficient patient. That should be your diagnosis. How do we know this is true? Well, for years, including even into the 90s, we've been studying the effects of vanadium and chromium. In fact, there was a study published in 1998 where they fed diabetic rats vanadium-infused water. And I know what you're thinking, what-dium? Vanadium, it's an essential mineral that you cannot live without. In fact, it's known to activate your insulin receptor and pull sugar into your cell. So if you're vanadium deficient, your sugars elevate and you'll be labeled diabetic, and you'll take all the metformin and glucophage on this planet and it will never work because it's not the cause. So what's one of the causes of diabetes? Vanadium deficiency. So if we start to put vanadium back in your diet, we can see your sugars usually start to level out if the cause is vanadium deficiency. Where do you get vanadium from? In food? Mushrooms. Dill, which is a spice. Parsley, which is, of course, a plant that we typically use for either a spice or flavors. And black pepper. So I'd like to say, let's have a mushroom, dill, parsley salad with a little black pepper sprinkled on the top of it. There's your vanadium dose for the day. You can also buy vanadium. It's an essential mineral, and it's very inexpensive. Some of the best forms of it are in a colloidal state, meaning it's liquefied. It's in suspension. You just drink this little ounce or a tablespoon or teaspoon of the vanadium-infused water, and boom, it works. Again, studies have confirming since the 1990s that vanadium will lower blood sugars if it's a vanadium deficiency. Listen, there was no known side effects, and also they found, wow, it helps to lower cholesterol and triglycerides at the same time. So vanadium. Another one, chromium. It's, again, an essential mineral. What does that mean? It means your body can't make it, so you must consume it. You must. So unless you're consuming high chromium-based foods like raw onions, not cooked, but raw, so chances are you're not biting into an onion like you bite into an apple. Raw onions, raw broccoli, raw green beans, and brewer's yeast. Now, just because I said the word brewer doesn't mean you go out and drink a lot of beer and go, I'm getting my chromium because it was brewed with yeast. No, brewer's yeast is a specific supplemental nutrient that you can add to smoothies and salads and things like that because it's loaded with chromium. So again, most of you probably aren't having a helping of brewer's yeast with your lunch, so we are almost all chromium and vanadium deficient. Why do 10% of Americans struggle with their sugars? Because they don't look to the cause. I promise you this, if you're a diabetic and you get tested to see if your chromium and vanadium levels are out of normal, and if they are, if you supplement to get them back into normal, sugars can change quickly. I've seen it happen in as little as 14 days. What's another issue with most diabetics? Well, they get told to eat the American Diabetic Association diet, which sadly is low-fat, moderate carbs, high grains. Guys, they even talk about eating whole wheat bread, which is pure sugar. So the last thing you should ever do is follow the American Diabetic Association's diet for diabetes. Why? They're not an organization whose goal is to reverse diabetes. They're an organization whose goal is to work together with doctors to manage your disease rather than to reverse your disease. So if you have diabetes, first, you need a physician whose focus is on your diet and lifestyle. Why? Because that's how you got it in the first place. Second, you need to get tested to find out what your minerals look like. Chromium and vanadium specifically are often low in people I work with that have diabetes, especially type 2. Third, we need to get rid of the American Diabetic Association diet. They talk a lot about drinking milk and eating grains and having candy bars and diet sodas, and you would look at me and be like, are you serious? If you don't believe me, go to Google, download the American Diabetic Association diet guidelines for type 2 diabetes, and you'll see it actually says nothing wrong with a artificially sweetened diet beverage and, having things like low-fat candy bars and even carbohydrates like grains and breads. They also recommend very heavily a low-fat diet, which we now know is one of the causes, again, of diabetes, because when your omega ratios go out of balance, your fats, your what we call cell membranes become inflamed. And on the cell membrane is where the receptor for insulin sits. And when the receptor becomes damaged, there's another cause. Why do sugars go up? Because of receptor damage. Receptor damage. So if we can fix the receptors, we start to fix the issue. Why does chromium work? It enhances your insulin receptor. Why does vanadium work? It activates the insulin receptor. Why does a high-fat, low-carb diet work? Because it heals the membranes for the receptors. Guys, if you want more information on how to fix diabetes, go to my website, AskDrErnst.com, and just type in the word diabetes under our search feature, and you will see a bunch of information that we have available for you. Not only some videos, but some interesting content and some of the studies that we just mentioned. Before I shift gears and start talking about this new therapy called Halotherapy, I want to throw out again a call to action for those of you who are listening. I host every month an event, and this month in August, we're hosting the Charlotte Thyroid Summit. Currently sold out, but you have access again to get tickets for this for free. We had 10, and as I do this call to action, realize this is a web broadcast. It's pre-recorded. So you're someone who's listening right now going, wow, that was some great information. What can I do to take the next step? Even though you might hear the word thyroid and think, what does that have to do with diabetes? One of the other causes of high blood sugar is hormone imbalance, specifically your thyroid hormone, because it regulates your metabolism. So if you have diabetes, coming to the Thyroid Summit would be fantastic because, again, we search for the cause, not the cover-ups and not the bandages like the way we would with certain medications and supplements. So it's on Saturday, August 27th, 11 a.m. here in Charlotte, and the ticket line is 704-906-2094. You can text it with your name and your email, or you can call it and just give us your information so we can send those tickets to you. Because there's only 10 left, I have a feeling these will be gone by the time you listen to this show. So call now, 704-906-2094, or text your name and info, and these tickets are yours free. Now, here's the interesting thing about our segment number 2 in regards to halotherapy. First of all, you've probably never heard of halotherapy. So it's not playing Halo, the video game. And maybe I'm aging myself on this show, but Halo is a very popular video game that a lot of our kids are playing, and you might think halotherapy is when I put my kids in front of Halo and I get my own therapy because they're off on their own. No. Halotherapy is referring to not a late fad, not something making a new splash, but a healing art involving breathing in salt. Halotherapy comes from the Greek word salt, which is halos. So essentially, you breathe in salt particles, and the inundation of salt into your body activates a whole host of natural healing effects. In fact, the reason I wanted to talk to you guys about this is over the last weekend, I went to Asheville with my wife. And, some of you know we have a baby that's due in about the next 6 weeks. And so we did our last sort of trip before baby comes. And I found a place in Asheville called the Salt Spa. And, we just looked at it as like, wow, this is kind of interesting. It's a salt spa. I wonder what they do. And basically, every form of a spa therapy you could have would be done with salt. So if you had a facial, it was like a salt facial. If you got a massage, it was a salt massage. But they had this room that they said they did halotherapy in. And so, I looked into it and I'm like, wow, this looks amazing. And basically what they do is they take Himalayan sea salt, which we know is loaded with minerals and loaded with various health components, and they grind it through a machine and they puff it into a room and it's all sealed and you sit in there for about an hour and you breathe it in. And so we thought, let's try it. Let's see what it does. And so I'm sitting there for about an hour. And first of all, we fell asleep within the first 10 minutes. Second of all, when you wake up, it's like you can taste it. You can feel it in your blood. You can taste the salt in your mouth. And when we left, for at least 3 or 4 hours, we were going, wow, it's like we just feel really at calm and at peace. And so I did some digging, and I want to talk to you guys about halotherapy. In 1843, the practice came into the attention of a medical doctor. His name was Dr. Felix Boswitzky. And he noticed that miners in the salt mines were experiencing sort of respiratory correction of various issues that a lot of people have. And so what he discovered was because these miners were breathing in the salted air in a salt mine, he found out that if you took people with respiratory issues and you actually put them in a salt mine, that they would get better with their respiratory problems. And so at the time, 1843, he called it the Wyszynski salt therapy. And so now, since 1843, we've sort of shined the light on this and said, wow, well, here's what actually happens. Several studies have been done that shows that if you breathe in salts from the Himalayan mountains, because of course that's where they were mining it, you can effectively decrease inflammation within the pulmonary system. So if you have chronic obstructive pulmonary disorders, asthma, cystic fibrosis, you name it, if there's some sort of a breathing issue, inhaling these ground salt particles has been shown to help. Why? Because they are massively anti-inflammatory. In addition, a study in 2006 found out that if you had cystic fibrosis and scar tissue, that if you inhaled these salt particles, it cut the inflammatory process completely off, and we started to notice a decrease in what I'll call scar production within the lungs. Even as far as the European Respiratory Journal published studies showing that smokers got a massive benefit by inhaling salted air. So what we're now looking at is we understand that salt is very beneficial for the human body. Understand that inside your body, you produce chemical responses and you get a lot of what are known as negative ions or free radicals or oxidation damage. And so salt in and of itself has an anti-ionic effect. It can pull negative ions from the body. When negative ions are neutralized, we get a positive health effect. And what they've discovered in all these studies is that when you neutralize ionization within the lungs, you actually decrease inflammation, you decrease mucus production, and you increase the pathways for air to go in by changing the electrical charge on the membranes within your lungs. In addition, because the lungs are what push nutrients in through the blood, because that's where the blood comes up and grabs various nutrients that it needs to carry around, they've noticed an increase in subtle salt concentration of the blood for about 4 hours. So we increase and absorb oxygen, and we kick off and get rid of carbon dioxide better when we have a salt environment within the lungs. Another thing they discovered is that these negative ions get into the bloodstream and they actually activate the cells in the tissues to decrease inflammation and decrease oxidation and help to push oxygen into the cell more so than before. And I don't know about you guys, but your cells need to breathe just as much as you need to breathe. So if you're having difficulty breathing, it's an implication that your cells are having difficulty breathing. And when our cells don't work very well, we get sick. So if we can increase the permeability, the ability for nutrients to get across the cell membrane, we're changing every avenue of disease and detoxification and cellular function. And what the current 2014-2015 studies of halotherapy is showing is that by inhaling ground Himalayan salt, you effectively increase the permeability of every cell within your body that is being bathed by blood. There are even some studies that I found showing that in psychiatric methods, so mood, elevation, affect, sexual drive, how you feel, your pain senses and everything else, you get major benefits with halotherapy. So what we know is this: if you have things like asthma, allergies, constant breathing issues, if you have things like migraines and headaches and burns and everything else, you're going to get an effect from doing this halotherapy. We also know that you've probably never heard of halotherapy before ever. And so what we want to do is just simply push this information out and have you guys look into it. So what can you do if you're somebody looking for some info on halotherapy? Well, you can Google halotherapy. You can go to our website, AskDrErnst.com, and type in halotherapy. You can find some information in regards to doing something fun. And the nice thing about halotherapy is if you find a place that does it, all you do is you buy an hour, you lay in a bed, and you breathe the salt in. I mean, it doesn't get any easier than that. And then the benefits are, thousandfold. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but I want to give a little call to action again for those of you who are listening to join me for my Thyroid Summit. It's on Saturday, August 27th at 11 a.m., and the number is 704-906-2094. Call it, text it, give us your name and your information, and what we're going to talk about next are the questions that you guys have submitted. Okay, so the first question is this: I'm a vegetarian, I can't lose weight, what's going on? And, I think I'm going to read a little bit into this question, if you guys are okay with this, and maybe educate you, because when I read, I'm a vegetarian, I can't lose weight, what's going on, I see frustration. I see the fact that this person, whoever this is going, I'm doing everything right and nothing's working. So yes, this is about vegetarian and can't lose weight, but it's also about I'm doing everything and it's not working. It's about I eat really healthy and it's not working. So it's kind of along the same lines. And hopefully you guys can see that. Usually when we ask a question, it's not the actual question that we want the answer to. We want to know more about what's actually happening. So I love how it says, what's going on? Because that gives me an open door to say there's a bunch of things that could be going on. And again, like I've always mentioned, it's always better to guess, not test. Sorry, I said that the opposite. It's always better to test, not guess. I'm just checking to see if you're paying attention. What we want to do is this. If we just guess and we say, well, if you're a vegetarian, here's what could be happening, go try this, and it doesn't work, what have we done? We've applied more frustration. And how many of you have done something thinking it should work and it didn't, and you got frustrated, so you said, well, I'm never doing that ever again. So instead of guessing, what if we actually started looking at things that can make someone not lose weight? Specifically, when we talk about vegetarians and vegans, there are a lot of reasons why people would choose to become a vegetarian or a vegan, and I think it's because there's a compelling, let's look at the fact that animals are being treated poorly, which is true. Let's look at the fact that we don't want to put them through inhumane growing environments, which is true. So I get it, okay, and I have nothing wrong with being a vegetarian or being a vegan, unless you're not doing it in the right way. So to answer this question, the first thing that could be going on is that you're not controlling your vegetarianism properly. And what I mean by that is that plant-based diets often emphasize vegetables, fruits, and grains. So when you're a vegetarian, you tend to eat a lot of fruits and grains. So what could be going on? Well, you might be eating a large amount of various cereal grains, refined or unrefined, or beans or legumes or things that are low in nutrition and high in inflammation. We also know that grains, of course, convert instantly into sugar, and we know sugar is inflammatory, so you may have something that we would call a grain belly or a wheat belly, which is the belly fat, the abdominal visceral fat that packs on when you eat too many grains. Vegan diets in particular, they are often devoid of certain nutrition that you cannot get from plants. So again, I'm not against vegetarianism or veganism. I'm just against the idea that you think by being vegan, you're instantly healthy, or you think by being vegetarian, you're instantly healthy. And what we now know is this. Most vegans and vegetarians are deficient in some of their core essential nutrients that are required for health, that are also required to lose weight. One of which is vitamin B12. It is extremely common for vegetarians to be B12 deficient. And some of the B12 issues we start to see, well, fatigue and tiredness and weakness and weight gain. So there we go. That could be number one. Number two, we tend to see things like calcium, iron, zinc deficiencies, which will wreck your immune system. And believe it or not, one of your immune system's job is to keep you at a normal, healthy weight. So if you're having difficulty losing weight, we could be deficient in certain nutrients. Here's a big one that kicks a lot of vegetarians and vegans. It's EPA and DHA deficiency. Plant foods do not contain linoleic acid and alpha-linoleic acid, which is a specific type of fat. We often see plants high in omega-6s and very low in omega-3s. So that's why if you eat a lot of grains and beans and rice and things like that, you tend to throw off your omega-3 and omega-6 ratio. So it's very possible for a lot of vegetarians and vegans to have low levels of these because they don't get them the way that they would. In fact, one study found that vegetarians have 30% less EPA and DHA than omnivores. Vegans often had 50% less EPA and 60% less DHA. So unless you're supplementing or taking them through some sort of an oil or form, you're going to be deficient in it. Thirdly, we can also be deficient in fat-soluble vitamins A and D, which are drastically important, again, for immune system function and biochemical reactivity. So if you're a vegetarian and you can't lose weight, what's going on? Well, chances are you're deficient. So what you need to do is sort of flip the switch, get some testing done on a nutrient level, and find out how do you affect these deficiencies. Here's the challenge with it, though. If you're a vegetarian and you're deficient in these, the reason you're deficient is because they typically come from things like pasture-raised, full-fat dairy, eggs, milk, cheese, fish, algae, and even some things like meats and that effect. So if you're the type of person where you're like, I don't take fish oil because it's an animal, or, I don't eat eggs because they come from an animal like a vegan might, then you're going to run into some struggles. And I don't think it's possible, unfortunately, to meet the needs of a vegan and sometimes vegetarian diet with just eating plant-based foods. I like to look at it as, I don't know necessarily that humans were created to be completely vegetarian or vegan. Part of it, because if you just look at our mouth structure, we see the first 4 to 6 teeth on the top are sharp and thin, which would imply that they're designed to bite through and chew through things. Typically, when you look at a lot of animals that are only herbivores, where they only eat nothing but plants, they have large, flat-topped teeth. They don't have central incisors or canines or things like that like we have. So I look at it and I say, well, wait a second. If our mouth is designed to rip through things and open up flesh and stuff to that effect, bite through meats, that's what our front does. And our back teeth are the ones that are flat. So they're designed to have vegetables and things like that. So our teeth structure inherently shows us we need to eat some degree of a fleshy sort of animal-style protein, meat, and then our back teeth show us that we do need to be a vegetarian. We can't just be completely carnivorous. So structurally, I believe we need to have a combination of both. But I get it. I understand that there are people who choose to be vegetarians or who choose to be vegans, and it's your choice. It's your health. You get to decide. But make sure you're making a decision with the information that you need. Again, because most vegetarians tend to be deficient, I hate to say this, but there's actually some studies that show that vegetarians don't live as long as we thought they might. We used to think, for example, that if you're a vegetarian, you tended to, live longer because you were healthier and your diet was better. But what we found out is that most people who choose vegetarianism or choose veganism also tend to choose the healthy lifestyle activities that lead to things like longer life and longevity. Most vegetarians tend to not smoke. Most vegetarians tend to do higher than normal amounts of exercise compared to meat eaters. And they tended to eat a lot of foods, again, that had anti-inflammatory basis to them, chia and flax and hemp, because they needed them because they don't eat meats. So as long as you do it properly, you can get a good amount of nutrition out of it, but realize that if you're struggling to lose weight, what's going on is more than likely a deficiency in things you need to lose weight. So again, it would be something along the lines of a B12 deficiency, calcium, iron, zinc, EPA, DHA, which is a type of a fat, and possibly your fat-soluble vitamins A and D. So there we go. If you're that type of person who's struggling, can't lose weight, eating healthy, having smoothies, having salads, staying away from, fat meats and stuff like that, boom, there's the answer. Now, another thing, just as I shift gears to my next question, is if you're struggling to lose weight in general, it's typically because you're eating too many carbohydrates. And what are vegetables? Well, they're carbs. What are fruit? Well, again, they're carbs. So what would we want to do instead? This is part of our cellular healing diet. How do you lose 10, 20, 30, 40 pounds in a month or two? Well, you eat what your body was designed to eat. Not necessarily meats, but fats. And you do get fats from meat, so we want to make sure that we're doing it appropriately. So a high-fat, moderate protein, low to no carb diet, regardless of if you're vegetarian or not, will really kick the fat off your body. Now, the next question says, I'm counting calories, and I need to know how much should I eat. For this example, I'm 35, 5'7", and I weigh 160 pounds, which, by the way, for those of you listening, 5'7", 160 is definitely too much. A 5'7" individual, I don't know if it's male or female, should probably weigh about 140 to 150 pounds max. And when we want to look at losing weight again, this person says, I'm trying to eat 1,700 calories a day. Is this good? No, because the calories in, calories out equation doesn't work. It's not like this. If you only eat 1,700 calories, but you burn 2,000 calories, you're going to lose weight because your body doesn't care about calories. What it cares about is nutrition. In fact, I've got 6 reasons that counting calories is absolutely crazy. Number 1, nobody knew what a calorie was 30, 40, 50 years ago. The word didn't even exist. If you constantly count calories to avoid obesity, then why is it that we have more people counting calories today than ever before, and we have more obesity today than ever before? It's because calories don't count, and nor should you count your calories. When we look at it from number 2's perspective, every other species on this planet that avoids obesity doesn't care what they eat. So if you look at things like animals, dogs and cats and everything else, they eat whatever they want that they can find in nature, not worrying about calories, and they're not running around fat. We don't have wild, fat, obese cows. We have the ones that are fed corn and soy and wheat that are fat because they're being fed grains. We also don't need to really worry about counting anything else that we eat. If we constantly count foods, what you should be counting is things like vitamin C, how much came in and how much came out, zinc, how much came in and came out, all of your essential minerals and vitamins and amino acids. Count that stuff instead of counting calories. We should also remember it's impossible to count all the calories that you consume. Why? Because they're everywhere, and food labels are usually incorrect. If you're going, well, the label said it had 700 calories, there's a chance, about 10 to 20%, that it's actually not exactly what it is. What you should be counting instead is you need to count the amount of fat you put into your body. You need to count the amount of protein that you put into your body. And don't count calories, count carbohydrates. What I mean by that is this. The human body, if you want to lose weight, really should have between about 20 to 30, maybe 40 grams of carbs total. Not calories, but carbs. So if you're going to count something, keep your carbohydrates total less than 40 grams. And you want to count your fats and get them up 100, 200 grams of fat. The ratio needs to be 60% fat to about 30% protein to about 10% carbohydrates. So notice it's percents, not numbers. So you need to find out what you're eating for the day and keep it on track with that. Guys, I hope you have found today informative. I hope you found today breakthrough, especially if you're somebody that has diabetes or you're struggling with, I got to find some sort of therapy that can help me to work. Halotherapy is great. And don't forget, you can always join us each week, not only with our podcast, but on our website, AskDrErnst.com. And I'm really hoping that today sets someone free. Last chance offer, 704-906-2094. That's the call line to get free tickets to the Saturday, August 27th, 11 a.m. Thyroid Summit here in Charlotte, hosted by me, where you're not only going to learn how to break free from thyroid issues, but debilitating fatigue, weight gain, and everything else. Thank you so much for joining us today. Look forward to future podcasts and also webcasts and the Ask Dr. Ernst Show, 11 a.m. here on WBT in Charlotte. Thanks so much. Have a great day.